You stare at your phone, watching the silence stretch like a wound. No reply, no response, not even the courtesy of a read receipt. And still, you hesitate to send another message. Not because you don't have anything to say, but because you know too well what happens. When you chase someone who's emotionally gone, you've already tried being warm. You've already tried giving space. And now, all you're left with is an aching question. What do you even say to someone who's afraid of the very connection you're offering? Because here's the painful paradox of loving an avoidant. The more sincere your message, the more overwhelmed they feel. The more open-hearted your words, the more they pull back. It's not personal, but it feels personal. It feels like rejection, like abandonment, like being punished for loving too honestly. But what if the problem isn't that you reached out? What if it's how you did? Avoidants don't fear connection because they're cold. They fear it because it threatens their sense of control. To them, intimacy isn't just closeness, it's exposure. And when someone gets too close, they don't feel seen. They feel trapped. So when you send a message, especially after they've gone quiet, what they hear isn't always what you intend. You say, "I just want to understand what's going on." They hear, "Your distance is wrong, and I need you to explain yourself." You say, "I miss you." They hear, "You're responsible for my discomfort." You say, "Are we okay?" They hear, "I'm going to need something from you that you can't give." The tragedy? You were never trying to corner them. You just wanted connection. But their fear translated your vulnerability into a threat. And so they vanished. But here's what no one tells you. There is a way to speak to them. That doesn't trigger their defenses. There is a message that bypasses the ego and speaks directly to the fear underneath. Because ego doesn't want connection. It wants protection. It wants pride. It wants power. But fear? Fear just wants to know it's safe to stay. Safe to be loved. Safe to open without being consumed. That's what you need to speak to. Not their avoidance. Not their silence. But the silent scream inside them that says, "If I let you close, I might lose myself." So the question becomes, how do you craft a message that soothes rather than pressures? One that reminds them love doesn't mean losing freedom. It means being accepted even in fear. You're not here to beg. You're not here to manipulate. You're here to understand the deeper truth behind their silence. And to respond, not from panic, but from power. The psychological roots of avoidant silence. You think they're ignoring you, but in their world, they're protecting you from themselves. You assume they don't care, but care, to them, is a double-edged sword. One side connection, the other side collapse. To understand avoidant silence, you must first understand where it was born, not in the relationship, not in the recent arguments, but in a distant past, a childhood often marked by emotional scarcity. This is where emotional needs were met with withdrawal, where vulnerability was punished or dismissed, where the safest way to stay attached was to not need anyone at all. So the avoidant learned early. Don't cry. Don't ask. Don't feel too much, because feelings get you shamed, or worse, abandoned. And while their body grew, their emotional blueprint never changed. They mastered the art of self-containment. They built a fortress around their heart and called it independence. But it wasn't independence. It was self-preservation. Fast forward to now, you offer them love, presence, tenderness, but the child inside them doesn't trust it. Because love once meant instability, and needing someone once meant pain. So your warmth, what should feel healing, triggers something ancient. When you say, "Talk to me," they hear, "Let down your guard and lose control." When you say, "I'm here," they hear, "Now I owe you something." Even silence on your part can overwhelm them. Because silence opens the door to interpretation. And interpretation, for someone wired by emotional trauma, is almost always catastrophic. They'll assume you're mad, that you're disappointed, that you're about to leave. So what do? They run. They shut down. They distance themselves before they get engulfed. But here's the part that hurts. Their distancing feels like abandonment to you. And your reaction, checking in, trying to connect, needing reassurance, feels like pressure to them. And so the cycle deepens. You seek closeness. They feel threatened. They retreat. You panic. You reach out. They retreat further. Both of you are hurting. Neither of you are trying to wound the other. But both are acting from fear. Just different versions of it. You fear being left. They fear being consumed. And here lies the tragic irony. What you need from them, reassurance, presence, connection, is exactly what they fear giving most. Not because it's you, but because their nervous system equates emotional intimacy with danger. They're not thinking, I don't care about you. They're thinking, if I respond, I might be drawn in again, and I don't know how to survive that. Avoidant attachment isn't about coldness. It's about survival. It's about people who grew up believing that needing others was a liability, and that closeness would only ever lead to pain. So when you message them, even with love, it touches a live wire. It's not that they don't want love. It's that love feels like a fire with no escape. And yet, part of them aches for it. Part of them wants to be held, to be understood, to be accepted exactly as they are, defenses and all. But to get through to them, you can't speak to their ego. The ego is armored. It's proud. It's reactive. You must speak to the fear underneath. The part that says, I don't know how to be close and safe at the same time. I want love, but I'm terrified I'll disappoint you. If I let you see all of me, you'll leave anyway. Your message must reach that voice. The silent one, the young one, the one still afraid that love always comes with a cost. So before you text them again, pause, breathe, and remember, you're not trying to win them. You're trying to understand them. And through that understanding, you'll say the thing they never knew they needed to hear. Why most messages push them away. You don't mean to overwhelm them, but your words land like waves crashing on a fragile shoreline. And every message, no matter how gentle in tone, gets filtered through the one lens they've always relied on. Self-protection. You send, can we talk? They hear, I expect you to explain yourself. You write, I miss you. They feel cornered, like they now owe you closeness they don't know how to give. You send nothing at all, hoping silence will teach them something. But avoidants don't read silence as care. They read it as confirmation. I knew you'd leave. This is where it gets cruelly ironic. The more emotionally honest your message, the more threatening it becomes. Because you're speaking from a place of connection, and they're still operating from a place of defense. To them, words that invite closeness aren't invitations. They're demands. And demands trigger shutdown. You could be the kindest soul on earth. But to someone who fears emotional responsibility, even kindness feels like pressure. Why? Because most messages do something dangerous. They center your need in a moment, when the avoidant is already overwhelmed by theirs. Let that sink in. Avoidants don't have less emotion. They have more that's been unprocessed. They're not detached. They're flooded beneath the surface. So when they go quiet and you reach out, they're not interpreting it in real time. They're hearing it through every past moment. Where closeness became a trap, the question in their subconscious is never, do I love this person? It's, will this message pull me into something I can't control? And when control is the only thing that's kept them safe emotionally, anything that challenges it, Even a heartfelt message gets pushed away. So what's the result? You reach out, hoping to feel close. They retreat, needing space to feel safe. And both of you are left with more silence than before. Here's what no one tells you. Avoidants don't hate communication. They just don't trust what it might cost them. Because the cost, in their history, has always been losing themselves, being consumed, being needed in ways they weren't equipped to handle. They've equated emotional availability with danger. Because once, when they were emotionally open, they weren't met with safety, they were met with disappointment. So now, when you ask for closeness, even in gentle ways, a reflex inside them says, "Don't go there." You'll be expected to give more than you can handle. And if your message, even unconsciously, comes from anxiety, they will feel it. They may not have the words for it, but nervous systems speak louder than text bubbles. They will feel your urgency, your panic, your longing. And to them, longing feels like a threat. So the question becomes, how do you not trigger their defenses? You don't beg. You don't chase. You don't ask them to be something they're not ready to be. You learn to write from the place they forgot existed. Safety without demand. Presence without pressure. Care without control. Your message, if you send one, must not ask for anything. It must do something far more powerful. It must speak to the frightened child inside them, who never got to be loved without expectation. That's the key. And in the next part, we'll craft a message that does exactly that. One that doesn't say, "Come back," but instead whispers, "Even if you're scared, you're not unsafe with me." Because when a message stops reaching for their ego and speaks to their fear, they feel it differently. Crafting the message that speaks to their fear. Most people send messages to get something. A response, reassurance, validation, closure. But what if you didn't need anything? What if the most powerful message wasn't one that asked for a reply, but one that reminded them they were safe, even in silence? This is the shift. Because when someone is avoidant, they expect love to come with conditions. They brace for pressure, for judgment, for emotional demands they're not ready to carry. So if you send a message from that anxious space, even unknowingly, they'll feel the energy behind it, and they'll shut down before they even read the words. But what if you could bypass the part of them that flinches and speak to the part of them that longs to be seen? Not the ego, which wants to stay detached, but the fear, which just wants to know, if I open to you, will I still be free? Here's the truth. Avoidants don't want to be chased. They want to be felt, gently, without intrusion. And if you can send a message from a place of self-anchored peace, instead of emotional urgency, you create something rare. Safety. So here's what that looks like. Not this. "You haven't responded, and it's really hurting me. I just want to know where we stand." Not this. "I'm giving you space, but I really miss you. Please talk to me." And definitely not this. "Guess you don't care after all. Thanks for the clarity." Instead, something like this. "I know silence is how you cope when things get overwhelming. I'm not here to pull you out of it. Just reminding you. I don't need anything from you right now. I just hope wherever you are, you feel a little less alone." That's it. No pressure, no demand, no expectation of a reply. It's a message that doesn't try to solve the gap. It respects it. It doesn't guilt them. It validates their internal world. And because it feels different, they'll experience it differently. Avoidants are hypersensitive to emotional agendas, but they're starved for emotional safety. When they feel it, even in a single message, they don't forget. They may not respond right away. They may not even know how to. But your words will sit with them like a strange kind of comfort they didn't expect, and maybe didn't believe was possible. It might be the first time someone let them be distant, without punishing them for it. The first time someone saw their withdrawal not as rejection, but as fear. And that simple reframing can open the door. Because the avoidant doesn't move when you pressure them. They move when they feel safe enough to come forward on their own. So your message shouldn't be a net that pulls. It should be an anchor that steadies. Let your words be soft, but sure. Let them reflect peace, not panic. Let them carry no need to be answered. Only the courage to say something true. Because here's the quiet truth. It's not your job to pull them back. It's your job to stop abandoning yourself while waiting for them. This message isn't about them. It's about who you become when you're no longer trying to rescue someone who hasn't even asked for saving. What this message actually does. You didn't send the message to make them come back. You sent it because it reflected something sacred inside you. A version of love that doesn't beg to be chosen. And that changes everything. Because when you speak to someone's fear, not to their ego, you remove the power struggle. You stop trying to pull connection from them. And you start becoming the person who doesn't fear what happens if it never returns. That's the shift. You're not trying to control how they respond. You're mastering how you show up. That one message, the one that didn't ask for anything, wasn't really about them. It was your declaration. I won't abandon myself just to keep someone who fears closeness. And they feel that, too. Not as a weapon, not as punishment, but as something unfamiliar and unsettling. Because most people either chase the avoidant or punish them for withdrawing. You did neither. You spoke, then let go. You named the truth without twisting it into manipulation. You gave them the dignity of their own fear, without sacrificing your own worth. And in that moment, whether they reply or not, you did something revolutionary. You broke the cycle. You stopped trying to rescue someone from their silence and started saving yourself from the slow death of emotional self-abandonment. Because here's what avoidance will never forget. Not the person who chased them, not the one who begged, not the one who stayed and suffered, but the one who spoke gently to their fear and then walked away with peace. That's the memory that haunts them. That's the energy they can't shake. Because it didn't demand, it invited. And avoidants, above all, don't want to be forced. They want to be free to choose. So give them that freedom. And give yourself something even greater. The freedom to stop fighting for love that feels like a battlefield. The freedom to hold your dignity when silence hurts. The freedom to know that love isn't measured by who replies, but by who you become when you stop needing to be answered. That's the end of the chase. That's the beginning of self-respect. And if they ever do reply, if they circle back from their fortress of emotional distance, they'll remember how it felt to receive something rare. A message that didn't speak to their ego's need to defend, but to the frightened child inside them that always wanted to feel safe and never did. And maybe, just maybe, they'll learn that love doesn't have to cost them their freedom. Until then, let them go. You've already said the one thing they couldn't unhear. And if this resonated with you, if you've ever sent the message that held love without losing yourself, share this with someone else who needs to hear it. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who speak from clarity, not craving.